Hello Shisha, welcome to my lecture on Kingdom Animalia. A big black bug blue, big blue bubbles. A big black bug blue, big blue bubbles. Interesting tongue twister. Now I wanted to introduce one of the major tongue twister of animal kingdom is giraffe, where it can be able to rotate its tongue in such a flexible way even the sharpest thorns cannot be able to damage its tongue movements. So it's a interesting fact about that. Let us continue with the contents of the lecture. Today I'm going to explain you about these things, the grades of organizations of body plan, animal classification, where the subtopics in that is invertebrate features and examples, and vertebrate features and examples. Now the overview of classification. We have knew that the multicellularity is a basic feature to characterize animals as one of the biggest group of animals or organisms. Here you can see the second level is the formation of the tissues. So the tissues are the second level and the multicellularity started in the sponges, and the next stage you can see the tissues has come, and tissues again divide into two major types, the radial symmetry and bilateral symmetry. Hence we can say that how tissues are able to form the identical images. Under the radial symmetry we have cnidarians, and under the bilateral symmetry again we have two divisions based on the protostome development or deuterostome development. So generally protostome deuterostome refers to the cephalization or the mouth or anus formation. We're going to learn about those things in the next few slides. Don't worry about that. And under the protostome development, you can see they based on the larva or the molting means, getting rid of the external skin like snakes. After a certain period of time, they get rid of their external skin, and again they develop the new skin. Based on that, we have developed or we grouped two groups. Under that, you can see annelids, mollusks, roundworms, and arthropods. Under the deuterostome development, we have two only, echinoderms and chordates. These are general organizations of body plan. Now we'll learn more about the feature lookup. Under the feature lookup, we're going to see the multicellular nature, which is characterized as metazoans. So here it's just a multicellular nature, and the second feature is the tissue development. So tissue development has gone up to certain extreme conditions. We knew that tissues gradually develop into organs. So while tissue is developing into a group of organs, so it shows different layers. So based on these layers, even we refer the morphological feature of the organism. So here you can see, so this is a actively dividing embryo into the complete organism. So while it is growing, so you can see how it's being distinguished into three major types, three major uh, forms of the layers. First one is called ectoderm, which is outer completely, and next is the endoderm, which is innermost, and mesoderm is nothing but the middle one. These are we classified the organisms. If an organism has two derm, we'll call that one as the diploblastic, or if it has three, we call that one as the triploblastic. Now we'll go with next one, symmetry. Symmetry refers to the mirror image of organism body. You can see how I actually put this symmetry like a mirror image. So the same thing has to be observed by studying the morphology feature of the organism. So first is types of symmetry. Asymmetry refers to A is nothing. Okay, whenever you see in most of the words, A refers to nothing, and here also the same term is applicable. So no symmetry is seen in some organisms. That's what we call as the asymmetry. And radial symmetry refers to uh, when you require four different cuts of an organism to get uh, equal pieces or the mirror images of organism, it is called as radial symmetry. And when you say bilateral symmetry, you can see uh, the organism requires one cut so that the equal halves will show the identical images. So that's what we call as bilateral symmetry. Now I'm going to tell you or show you an animation regarding the basic features. I wanted to show some patience because it's quite deeper in nature. So don't feel bad about that, but it's actually covering a lot deeper things than the actual subject content you want to learn. Okay, ready? One sec.
Most animals belong to the Bilateria, including familiar organisms such as mollusks, arthropods, and chordates. Bilaterian animals share a number of common features, most notably bilateral symmetry. The Bilateria is divided into two major groups, the Protostomia and the Deuterostomia. Protostome means first mouth, and Deuterostome means second mouth. The relevance of these names will be explained as we compare development in the two groups, starting with the Protostomia. The Protostomia is a diverse group of animals with a wide range of body structures. Examples include arthropods, mollusks, and flatworms. All of these animals are united by several features of their early development, described in the next section. When the embryos of many Protostomia reach the 4-cell stage, they undergo a pattern of cell division known as spiral cleavage. New cells are added on top of the existing cells. Each cell division produces a daughter cell that is above and slightly offset from the original cell. Protostomes exhibit determinate cell development. In early developmental stages, each cell corresponds to a specific feature of the body plan in later development. If a cell is killed, the corresponding part of the organism will not develop. Eventually, the developing embryo will reach the gastrula stage. At this point in development, animals begin to form 3 layers of cells, giving rise to endoderm, ectoderm, and mesoderm. Endoderm is on the inside of the gastrula, while ectoderm is on the outside. Mesoderm forms as masses of cells between the ectoderm and endoderm and near an opening called the blastopore. The mesoderm lines the coelomic cavities. Developing coeloms in this fashion is known as schistocele. As development continues, the gastrula resembles a tube. In the protostomia, the blastopore becomes the mouth. The mouth is the first opening, giving rise to the term protostome. The anus is a second opening that develops later. Deuterostomia is a group that contains a relatively small number of phyla. The best known members are the echinoderms and the chordates. Deuterostome animals show a developmental pattern that is quite different from the protostomia. Once a deuterostome embryo reaches the 4-cell stage, it undergoes a pattern of cell division known as radial cleavage. New cells are added on top of the existing cells. Each cell division produces a daughter cell that is directly above the original cell. Deuterostomes exhibit indeterminate cell development. Cells can change their developmental fare if changes are made to the embryo at early stages of development. For example, cells can be removed from an embryo for genetic testing without affecting later development. When a deuterostome reaches the gastrula stage, the embryo begins to form endoderm, ectoderm, and mesoderm. The mesoderm forms as outpocketings from the inner space of the gastrula, which is known as the archenteron. When these mesoderm pockets pinch off, they enclose the coelomic space. Developing coeloms in this way is known as enterocele. As development continues, the gastrula comes to resemble a tube. In deuterostomes, the blastopore may become the anus. The mouth is a second opening that occurs later. This is the source of the name deuterostome. The table above compares development in protostomes and deuterostomes.
I hope this is very clear explanation for you. Maybe symmetry is a bit messy here, but I wanted to observe the other features. So I want to refer the reference where I got the below slides from one of the teacher's work due to lack of time. Now we'll go through the classification of animals. Animalia. We knew that the animals are classified into two major groups. These groups based on the the presence of vertebrae or not. So we have classified into two groups. First group is called as non-chordata, where the notochord is completely absent. You can see here this is Porifera, Coelenterata, Platyhelminthes, Nematoda, Annelida, Arthropoda, Mollusca, Echinodermata, Protochordata, and Vertebrata. I want you to remember this quite easily because the sequence of organisms, you can see it is the simpler one to complex. So remember an acronym I'm going to tell now. So remember P C P N A M E P. So this is acronym I made for you. Uh, if you refer this, it exactly matches with all first letters. If I can tell you like this, you may not remember for a long time. So simply, I'll tell you a short story to remember this quite easily. So PCP refers to public public clinical practitioner. Generally in India we call as RMP, but in foreign they'll be called as PCP. And NAM, NAM. Generally NAM refers to name in Hindi, so take it as it is. And next EP refers to remember a name Edward Patrick. That could be an English name, so you'll remember that for a long time. So public clinic practitioner name is Edward Patrick. I hope you remember this. And even fictionally I made a story like this. For example, uh, if someone is going to an Indian and he's asking about a doctor, particularly this PCP grade doctor, and he wants to know his name, so PCP name is EP. I think that could be helpful for you in exams. And when I'm going to tell you about vertebrata, acronym I made for you while the session comes up. Next is porifera. So porifera, the term itself derived from porous body. You can see here. So how porous it is? It's very much porous. That's why we have classified them as the poriferans. So porifera has included the sponges, mostly aquatic non-motile animals attached to some solid support. An example is Spongilla, Cycon, Euplitesalia, etc. So these are all mostly oceanic forms. Generally, these are present under the beds of the ocean. So next, we're going to see the next slide, Coelenterata. So Coelenterata are also aquatic in nature, and these have the cavity inside, or you can say them as the coelomates. The body has two layers, so outer and inner layers, and even some of them will remain as colonies, what we call as corals, and where others are single. So examples are corals, hydra, jellyfish, sea anemone, etc. You can even see the images here. Next is platyhelminthes. So platyhelminthes are also called as platforms. These have the bilateral symmetry, triploblastic, that means three layers of embryonic origin, and acoelomates. The coelom is completely absent. The coelom refers to the absence of the body cavity or the space inside the body cavity, and they do not have true cavity inside body. That means the pseudocoeloms might be, they may be free living or parasitic. The planaria, one of the organisms that have high efficiency of reproducing or regenerating its body part, and liver fluke, a disease causing pathogen in tapeworm. I think this tapeworm scientific name is Tinea solium, parasitic completely, and it can grow up to meters inside the intestine of human. Generally, pigs carry this one as host. The infected pig meat may be going to cause the disease for the healthy person. Next is nematodes. So nematodes general features are cylindrical, bilateral, symmetrical, and triploblastic pseudocoelomates. I'm sorry, there's spelling error. Pseudocoelomate is think my handwriting is not up to the mark on my digital slate. Hope I'll learn this soon. So they have tissues but no real organs, and they are parasitic. Example is ascaris, roundworms, and Uchreria, spinworms. You can see both of them. So both of them responsible for some of the diseases that increases the body organs in the higher, higher uh, level, or we can say it looks like much swelled. And elephantiasis is due to the Uchreria branch of tree. Next is annelids. So we are very familiar with annelids. So this it is bilateral, triploblastic, coelomate, and segmented. This segmentation has enabled organisms to be very unique among the invertebrates. They have differentiation of organs, but still you'll find all the organs inside their own segmentation. And examples is earthworm, nereis, leech, etc. So here I want you to see earthworm here. So protostomium, mouth, and seta refers to the divisions. And next is the male pore, and anus you can see at the edge, and clitellum. So these regions will help during the reproduction or exchange of the uh, gametes. And next you know about leech, which dominantly sucks out the blood. Next is arthropods, one of the largest group of animalia. So they have the basic feature of jointed appendages. They are bilateral, segmentation also found, and open circulatory system can be seen here, and the body cavity is filled with the blood. They have jointed legs. Examples you can see the prawn, spider, butterfly, housefly, crab, cockroach, scorpion, centipede. However, crabs and prawns one of the commercial products in marine ecosystems, whereas humans go crazy and even they consume cockroaches. Ack, too bad. Now let's continue with the next thing. It's called mollusca. So mollusca is physically we can distinguish them by producing the hard shell over its body. So you can see most of these will have hard shells, except the octopus purely water based organism. And here you can see the bilateral symmetry. The coelomic cavity is much reduced and they have little segmentation and open circulatory system. Kidney like organs will be produced for excretion. The foot of false foot will be useful for moving around. Example is snails, mussels, chiton, octopus, etc. And even the body surface is very much smoother in nature. And octopus, it is aquatic, so it wants to hold support to a lot of solid substances. So its succulence present on its these structures will help in holding them firmly and remain in a particular place. I think we are covering PCP. Norm is finished and we have EP. So E refers to echinodermata. So echine refers to the spiny structures. So the organs which have the spiny structures on the body is considered as the echinoderms. The echinoderms, generally the spiny structure is found, and these are free living marine animals. These are triploblastic and have coelomic cavity. They have water-filled tubes which helps in the movement, and also hard skeleton, calcium carbonate deposits also found on its body. So examples are starfish, sea crane, feather stars, sea cucumber, etc. So sea cucumber is also one of the harmful thing, and when you go to beach, you pray that you don't actually meet this guy. And starfish, you can see can only move through the water currents, so and so. So we stopped. I think we end with Echinodermata. Next is Protochordata. So Protochordata is one of the exceptional group of organisms where you'll find they are uh, they are bilaterally symmetrical and triploblastic. They have notochord. No, we cannot say they have notochord. It is nothing but a slowly developing notochord. We can say it is a bridge between the the invertebrates and vertebrates. Along with the notochord is generally present between the anterior part of the body, whereas the interior regions they remain notochordless. Example, so even I found some audio file here. I'll play once.
Balanoglossus.
Balanoglasses, think, clear pronunciation. Amphixis and Hermitnia, and even the species name was also told. Don't worry about that. So these are the examples of protochordates and amazing organism Balangolysis, which can easily move in water. Just imagine one part of the body has bone, another part is like free, like earthworm, but still it can make movements. I think it's end of the non-vertebrates. So here I'm going to give you a quick overview through this animation. I wanted to watch this and learn from this. Let's start.
This phylogenetic tree of animals presents the best supported hypothesis of the evolutionary relationships among major animal groups. It shows that the protostomes and another group, the Deuterostomes, which includes us, share a common ancestor. The protostomes are, for a few reasons, the most successful group of animals on Earth. The protostomes and Deuterostomes are characterized by bilateral symmetry. Hence, these animals are called bilaterians. A bilaterally symmetrical animal can be divided into mirror image halves by a single plane that passes through the midline of its body. Bilateral symmetry is characteristic of animals that have a distinct front end, with a head concentrated with sensory and nervous tissues. With this arrangement, the head end typically precedes the rest of the body as the animal moves, allowing an animal to assess a new environment before entering. The protostomes and other bilaterians also distinguish themselves by the presence of 3 embryonic cell layers. That is, they are triploblastic, having ectoderm, endoderm, and mesoderm. Mesoderm is the new cell layer found in triploblasts. In these animals, mesoderm has developed into muscles and many other organs and organ systems, which provide their owners with numerous evolutionary advantages. Protostomes and deuterostomes are clades that have been diversifying separately for more than 500 million years, ever since the Cambrian explosion. The clades are distinguished in part by their early embryology. During gastrulation of these animals, a hollow ball that is 1 cell thick indents into a cup-shaped structure, forming a blastopore. In protostomes, which is Greek for mouth first, the mouth arises from the blastopore. In deuterostomes, which means mouth second, the blastopore becomes the anus, and the mouth forms later. Let's now focus on the protostomes. The protostomes themselves are extremely varied, but they all have a few features in common. They are bilaterally symmetrical animals whose bodies exhibit 2 major derived traits: an anterior brain that surrounds the entrance of the digestive tract, and a ventral nervous system consisting of paired or fused longitudinal nerve cords. Other aspects of the protostome body organization differ widely from group to group. However, the protostomes can be divided into 2 major clades, the Lophotrochozoans and the Ecdysozoans, based largely on DNA sequence analysis. The precise placement of a small group, called arrowworms, within the protostomes is still in question. Of the 2 large groups, the Lophotrochozoans include animals that don't undergo molting during their growth, whereas the Ecdysozoans do molt. Molting is the shedding of the body's external covering, the cuticle. Lophotrochozoans were grouped together based on similarities in genomic sequences. Many lineages, with the notable exception of mollusks, have a worm-like body form, which enables them to burrow efficiently through marine sediment or soil. The name Lophotrochozoan comes from 2 different ciliated features. One structure, called a lophophore, is a circular or U-shaped ring of ciliated, hollow tentacles around the mouth that is used for both food collection and gas exchange. The lophophore appears to have evolved independently at least twice, or else it's an ancestral feature of Lophotrochozoans and has been lost in many groups. The other notable structure of Lophotrochozoans is a free-living larval form known as a trochophore. Neither the lophophore nor the trochophore is universal to all Lophotrochozoans, however. Of Lophotrochozoans, annelids deserve mention because they have evolved a useful adaptation, segmentation. Each segment is separated by a septum that isolates it from the adjacent segment. Segmentation allows an animal to move different parts of its body independently, giving it much better control of its movement. The other major clade of protostomes, the ecdysozoans, is characterized by having an external covering, or cuticle, that is secreted by the underlying epidermis, the outermost cell layer. The cuticle provides these animals with both protection and support. Once formed, however, the cuticle cannot grow. These animals increase in size by shedding, or molting the cuticle, and replacing it with a new larger one. This molting process gives the clade its name. In Greek, ekdysis means to get out of. A fossil Cambrian arthropod, preserved in the process of molting, shows that molting evolved more than 500 million years ago. An increasingly rich array of molecular and genetic evidence, including a set of Hox genes shared by all ecdysozoans, suggests the ecdysozoans have a single common ancestor. Thus, molting of a cuticle is a trait that may have evolved only once during animal evolution. In many ecdysozoans that have worm-like bodies, the cuticle is relatively thin and flexible. It offers the animal some protection, but provides only modest body support. A thin cuticle allows the exchange of gases, minerals, and water across the body surface, but it restricts the animal to moist habitats. The cuticles of other ecdysozoans, mainly arthropods, function as external skeletons, or exoskeletons. These exoskeletons are thickened by layers of protein and a strong, waterproof polysaccharide called chitin. Predation was a major selection pressure in evolution that favored the development of hard external body coverings. Like annelids in the Lophotrochozoan clade, arthropod bodies are segmented. The segments typically differ strikingly from one another and bear specialized appendages. The appendages are manipulated by muscles, which are attached to the inside of the exoskeleton. Each segment has muscles that operate that segment and the appendages attached to it. The jointed appendages of arthropods give the clade its name from the Greek words arthron, which means joint, and podos, which means foot or limb. In this body plan of a crustacean, which is an arthropod, appendages have become specialized for sensing, holding food, walking and gathering food, and swimming. Jointed specialized appendages permit complex patterns of movement, including, in insects, the ability to fly. With flight, insects took advantage of new feeding and lifestyle opportunities. These opportunities, in turn, led to the unparalleled evolutionary success of insects.
It's really a nice overview. Whatever I did not cover, most of them covered, and even the terms what you have seen here, mostly they will not be used at your level or age, but it's good to know them. Now let me introduce you vertebrata. So vertebrata is evolved from invertebrates, and now we look at the general features of vertebrates. The general features include the vertebral columns in the internal skeleton, and they are bilateral symmetry and triploblastic in nature. They have coelomic cavity and also differentiated in tissues, organ systems as well. The regions of the body is very much special. You can see the head, neck, trunk formation, tail also seen in the lower organisms, and they have two pairs of fins or limbs. The respiration, aquatic forms generally takes place through gills, and in land through the lungs. The sexes are separate, that means dimorphic mostly, and vertebrates are divided into five different groups. No, I think by looking at the first letter, spices exclusively found in fishes, amphibians which can survive both land and water. Reptilia refers to the body covered with the scales, and aves body covered with feathers which can fly, and mammals which have the mammary glands to feed their young ones. Now coming to the acronym I I made for you. The acronym is quite simple. Be able to remember the Trinity according to Hindu mythology. God, the god is Parameshwara. So if you remember Param, Param, that's it. I think it's as easy as possible. So PARM, P refers to the Pisces, Amphibians, Reptiles, Aves, and Mammals. I made it easy. Should be saying thanks for me. Okay, just kidding. Let us continue with the subphylum vertebrates. As per PG, we have a certain infraphylum or superclasses, which I am not including here. So that I'm what going to do is I'm briefly going to tell you what is what as per the requirement for the book. So here you can see the class Agnatha, where eel-like structures are there, mostly parasitic, lock jaws, and paired appendages seen here. And you want to remember that mostly they lack, they do not have the mouth. Generally, the mouth is different. The sucking mouth can be seen here. The jaws are purely absent. So even we can say the class Agnatha as the jawless fishes. And you can see the subphylums Myxini and Petromyzotida, so where the mouth and teeth formation is gradually developed in this. And next is intrasubphylum or superclass Gnathostomata. So here you can see the jawed fishes. The jaw development has been taking place in the fishes, and paired appendages also seen here. So this one, the class chondrichites, where sharks, rays, and skates are included. The cartilaginous skeleton is one of the chief feature of this. Always remember, you'll get questions like, where does the jawless fish is included? So cartilaginous skeleton is common feature of which group? So should be when remembering quite perfectly. So chondrichites generally have the cartilaginous skeleton. Example is sharks, rays, and skates, and they have even spiral wall and digestive tract. Next is osteichthyes. So osteichthyes are bony fishes. So the bones are chief parts of this, and gills are also covered by the bony operculum. Most have the swim bladder. And again, the subclasses are there. I don't think it's very important for you, but still, the bony skeleton, where the fin structures are again much evolved in sarcopterygi. And next is actinopterygi, where they have dermal scales and ray field. And also one of the exceptional cases is the blue whale, which is a mammal again. Next is amphibia. So anyway, amphibians, reptilia, aves, mammalia. We're going to see next few slides. So I wanted to focus on these two subclasses before going into the Pisces. Right now, the Pisces fishes. So here you can see these are fresh living or marine living organisms, skin covered with scales and plates. Respiratory gills are very cheap, and even we call the heart of fish as the venomous heart. These are cold-blooded, and their hearts have only two chambers, so the oxygenated deoxygenated blood will combine together. And the skeleton made up of cartilage. And next is the bony fishes examples, and you should know the examples here: tuna, rohu, electric ray, stingray. So great structures of the fishes. Now let us look at next one, a amphibians. So amphibians, amphi refers to both. They can survive both in land as well as in water. They do not have the scales, and also they have the mucous glands on the skin, which is responsible for the uh, respiration in case of frogs. And respiration through gills or lungs also will take place in their metamorphological stage, and they lay eggs in water. Example is frog, toad, and salamander. You can see their body is slimy in nature. And next is, generally it is included as tetrapods, because of they have four appendages. Even this can be classified or can be considered as under the tetrapoda. Next is R stands for reptilia. So the reptiles have one of the physical unique feature, scales and breathing through the lungs. they are cold-blooded and they have three-chambered heart, and crocodiles exceptionally have a four-chambered heart. So again, underline the point and keep this in mind. The crocodiles have the four-chambered heart. They lay eggs in hard coverings in water. So what we call these one as the oviparous organisms. So examples: snakes, turtle, lizards, and crocodiles. You can see the images all. You can see all the images here: snakes, crocodile, flying lizard, and lizard. Aves. So aves include the birds. So birds are warm-blooded organisms, and they have four-chambered heart. They breathe through the lungs. Especially, they have the lungs called the air sacs. So the air sacs will help them in storing the air when they move between different altitudes. You know, the beautiful physiological structure you'll find inside the body. Next, most of the organism, the the prelimbs or the limbs which are in the anterior portion, they got converted into the wings where it is covered with feathers and which help in flying. And even these are oviparous in nature, which lay eggs. And the examples are crow, sparrow, pigeon, duck, stork, ostrich, etc. And now look at the last one, mammalia or mammals. So mammals are also warm-blooded, and they have four-chambered heart. They have mammary glands, production of food. I know the mammary gland will help in breastfeeding the young ones, and also the skin has hairs and sweat glands dominantly, and they give direct birth to the young ones, which is also considered as the viviparic nature. And some of them exceptionally lay eggs. Example: platypus and echidna. So these two, remember, platypus and echidna, which lay eggs. These also a probable question in most of the exams. And now I forgot actually the differences here. If you start from the aves, so aves will excrete something called the uric acid. So generally they excrete uric acid, and whereas mammals will excrete urea. And if you look at fishes, they excrete directly the ammonia. Now let me show you the animation. Sorry. About the Deuterostomes development. This is the end of chapter. Please hold on, even I think it is a bit longer and more informative. Let's go.
Although humans and sea stars are strikingly different in appearance, they are in fact closely related. They are both deuterostomes. Deuterostomes are grouped together, separate from protostomes, based in part on similarities in their early development. However, today the strongest support for their shared evolutionary relationships comes from phylogenetic analyses of DNA sequences of many different genes. The major groups of living deuterostomes comprise three distinct clades. These are the echinoderms, which are the sea stars, sea urchins, and their relatives; Hemi Chordates, which are acorn worms and terebranchs; and chordates. The chordates include lancelets, sea squirts and other tunicates, and vertebrates. Scientists are learning a lot about the ancestors of modern deuterostomes from fossils discovered in China, dating from the Cambrian period, about 500 million years ago. This particular fossil animal is an ancestral deuterostome with bilateral symmetry, external gills, and a segmented posterior body. Features such as these of fossil animals, together with the phylogenetic analyses of living species, show that the earliest deuterostomes were bilaterally symmetrical, segmented animals with pharyngeal slits. Pharyngeal slits are gill-like openings between the throat, or pharynx, and the outside of the body. If we look at adult echinoderms, it is easy to wonder why they are grouped with other deuterostomes. Adult echinoderms have radial symmetry, not bilateral symmetry. However, their young, the larvae, are actually bilaterally symmetrical. Echinoderms undergo a radical change during body development into radially symmetrical animals. Radial symmetry is a derived trait in echinoderms that is absent in the Deuterostome common ancestor. Another derived trait of echinoderms is the presence of calcified internal plates, which serve as an internal skeleton. As is typical of animals with radial symmetry, echinoderms have no head, and they move slowly and equally well in many directions. Most echinoderms have an oral side, containing the mouth, and an opposite aboral side, containing the anus. It turns out that living echinoderms also lack pharyngeal slits, a feature found sometime during the development of all other deuterostomes. However, gill-like structures have been found in fossilized ancestral echinoderms, so echinoderms did at one time have pharyngeal slits, but lost them during their evolution. Hemi Chordates are worm-like marine deuterostomes. Hemi Chordates, unlike echinoderms, remain bilaterally symmetrical into adulthood. Hemi Chordates are acorn worms, such as this one, and terebranchs, with bodies organized in three major parts: a proboscis, a collar, which bears the mouth, and a trunk, which contains the other body parts, including pharyngeal slits. Hemi Chordates are more closely related to echinoderms than to other deuterostomes. In fact, they both have ciliated larvae that in some cases appear very similar to each other. Chordates are also deuterostomes. As adults, the three groups of chordates couldn't appear more different, yet their relatedness is evident in many cases by comparing larval or embryo stages. At some stage in their development, all chordates display several derived structures: a dorsal hollow nerve cord, a tail that extends beyond the anus, and a dorsal supporting rod, the notochord. A sea squirt is a marine filter feeder in the group of tunicates. Tunicates lose their notochord as they develop into adults, but their larval forms display all the chordate features: a notochord, a dorsal hollow nerve cord, and a tail that extends beyond the anus. You can also observe the pharyngeal slits that mark tunicates as members of the deuterostome group. In tunicates and lancelets, the pharynx, with its slits, functions as a straining device to filter small food particles. Lancelets are fish-like marine chordates. The adult lancelet is unique in displaying all three derived structures of chordates. The notochord is the most distinctive derived chordate trait. It is composed of a core of large cells with turgid, fluid-filled vacuoles, which make the notochord rigid but flexible. The vertebrate group takes its name from the jointed dorsal vertebral column that replaces the notochord during early development. The pharyngeal slits found in the common ancestor of deuterostomes are present at some developmental stage in all chordates, but are often lost or greatly modified in adults. Four other key features, in addition to the vertebral column, characterize the vertebrates. They have an anterior skull enclosing a large brain. The vertebral column supports a rigid internal skeleton. Internal organs are suspended in a body cavity called a coelom. Vertebrates also have a well-developed circulatory system driven by contractions of a ventral heart. Specialized structures for locomotion, such as fins, and feeding, such as jaws and teeth, evolved among the vertebrates. The evolution of these features allowed many vertebrates to become large, active predators, which in turn allowed the vertebrates to diversify widely, including to living on land.
Interesting one. I think this is an overview. That's it from me. I hope the as you're going to prepare for face test, I want to do well. I see in most of your absent in the classes, which is not encouraging thing for me. Maybe I want to share a lot of information with you, but the time factor is not allowing me to uh, make everything and give you out through a video lecture, which is quite weird, and talking to your screen and sharing with the faraway people in the same city. Anyway, I want you to do well in the exam, so be prepared, and I want you to get good marks when you actually end the phase exams of ninth class. All the best, Shishya.